fellas, let's go. Here we go. Big play. Trips open right, 334 stretch, Z post, X stop, on two. Ready?
This is my dad's show.
It's called the Quarterback Dadcast.
Hey everybody, it's Casey Jaycox with the Quarterback Dadcast, and I'm excited to get to this next episode. But before that, I want to talk to you about my friends up at ACME Homes, which is one of the top home builders in the state of Washington. They're a home builder founded on the principles of honesty, integrity, and the goal of really building dreams for their customers. And what I love most about ACME is I know the owner. He's a former college teammate of mine, and he found the Quarterback Dadcast because of our friends up at Sitka Seafoods, who've been a sponsor for us for now almost over a year. But what I love about ACME Homes, not because I love Bob and he's a salt of the earth guy, but when I had a chance to look at their website, when I had the chance to look at some of their homes and the craftsmanship, I was blown away. Established in 2006, ACME Homes provides itself on quality, professional service. They're innovative, functional. They have beautiful designs, competitive pricing, but most above all, you get what you pay for, and you get service. And Bob and his team consistently are one of the top home builders in the state of Washington. And right now, I want you to visit their site at acmehomeswa.com. That's ACMEHOMESWA.com to learn about Sienna Heights. Over in Wenatchee right now, where it's always sunny, you can look at some amazing floor plans. They have anywhere from 1,900 square feet to 2,600 square feet. You got 4-bedroom, you got 3-bedroom. These homes start in the low 500,000. And as we think about getting away from this yucky Seattle weather right now, now's the time. With everybody having more flexibility to work remote and get to the east side of the state, now's the time to invest in that second home or maybe that first home you're going to move over to Wenatchee. Now's the time to do it. So I ask you to contact Bob and his team now at ACME, which is 425-903-1453. Also, if you have real estate inquiries, contact Jennifer or Denise at 425-308-8082 or 425-309-2318. So, huge shout out to Bob and team at ACME. I welcome you to the Quarterback Dadcast, and I hope that everyone takes time out of their day to take a look at Sienna Heights. But with that, let's get to today's episode. Well, hey, everybody, it's Casey Jaycox with the Quarterback Dadcast. I'm excited for our next guest. His name is Anthony Garcia. He is from the great state of California, a former Azusa Pacific stud. Actually, Uncle Rico moment here. Actually, my last collegiate football game was against Azusa Pacific. But Anthony is an international best-selling author. He is an expert sales trainer. He's been featured on Forbes, CNBC, Fox, and CBS. He is, like I mentioned, the author of the international best-selling book, Catapulting Commissions, a keynote speaker. He shared the stage with studs like Les Brown and Jack Canfield. But with all that said, that's not why we're having him on. We're having Anthony on because we want to talk about a dad life, and we want to understand how Anthony's working hard to become the ultimate quarterback of his household. So with that further ado, Mr. Garcia, welcome to the Quarterback Dadcast.
Casey, man, so excited to be here. Thanks for having me with your audience. I'm honored to spend time with this group.
Cool. Well, in true QB Dadcast fashion, we always start each episode with what are you most grateful for as a dad right now?
Oh, I think the thing I'm most grateful for as a dad, it's just health and opportunity. I think the health of my family. I have 2 12-year-olds, a 21-year-old. We're in a blended family. I have 2 dogs. One I love, one was growing on us. We talked about just before we went on air. My dog, hopefully she doesn't make an appearance on the podcast. But the entire environment of my household is healthy. 2 girls just started school. They're both heading into the 7th grade. They're polar opposites in the direction they go. One is very social and animated and has tons of friends, and the other is more, I would say, more in the studious, nerdy-ish kind, where she doesn't have tons of friends. She kind of stays in her lane, but is really connected within her sporting community. So it's fun to see everybody growing. So I think I would be wrong to say if the health of my family wasn't the thing I'm happiest about, because everyone's kicking, everyone's moving in the right direction.
That's awesome. And during this COVID pandemic that we, for some reason, somehow find ourselves still dealing with, we're in August, last day of August as we're recording this, everybody. And so when this episode goes out, it'll be in a month or so. For me, man, I'm grateful for my kids' mindset as it relates to hard work and we've had conversations about, I think it was Joe Montana. I heard him say, "Do you want to be the best, or do you want to be your best?" And when we compare ourselves to others, never really good outcomes are going to happen. And just reminding not only my own self, my wife, my two kids, that when we can look ourselves in the mirror and be our best, that's all we can ask for. And so those are conversations I've been having with my kids about, and realizing if there's something that you want and doesn't go your way, whoever's fault it is, let's take accountability, but let's figure out what we can do to try to get back on track, or what other things can we do to work harder to achieve that if it's truly important to you. So I'm grateful for those opportunities to have those conversations. Okay, so you talked a little bit about you got two 12-year-olds, you got a 21-year-old. Talk about what's a day in the life of the Garcia household.
Yeah. So, fun fact, we're completely blended modern age family, I would so to say. Okay. So, this is both my wife and myself's second marriage. So we have kids that come from a different relationship. My wife had my 21-year-old when she was a child herself. So they essentially grew up together. So it is a blended family, but typical day in the Garcia household, right? So I have Samantha, who is she is my socialite, like very TikTok adventurous. She all summer long couldn't get her up before like 12 o'clock in the summer. But school starts now. She's up at 5:45, 6 in the morning, blow drying her hair, making sure her mom allows her to put like a light touch of makeup on, it is clothes are ironed. She is completely ready to go to school, like a fashion show. Isabella, my other 12-year-old, she is the Taekwondo athlete. She's a black belt in Taekwondo. She trains after school, sometimes before school. In true athlete fashion, rolls over last minute, grabs something to eat, throws on shorts, t-shirt, puts her hair up, grabs a backpack full of books and says, "I'm ready to go." And then our 21-year-old, who's finishing, he has one more year left in college. So he's living with us while he's doing school. He works at Starbucks, but when he's not working, he's either sleeping or playing video games. And I just don't know the time, and it's hard to gauge his hours. So some days he's leaving the house at 4 a.m. because he has to go to work. Other times I wake up at 4 or 5 a.m. He's still awake playing video games from the night before. And I'm like, So in true 21-year-old fashion, he's living carefree. Makes decent money at his part-time job, goes to school, and then we have 2 dogs, English Bulldog, Maltipoo. So. And everyone, for the most part, goes out on their ventures out, and we try to recircle in the evening for dinner.
Nice. That sounds like an exciting, busy crew. Tell me a little bit about what was life growing up for you, and then talk about how your parents shaped you now that you're parenting your kids.
Ooh. So growing up, it's interesting. So I just did this whole panel presentation with the company I work with on intersectionality, and I was talking about like how people grow up and it shapes them. So to share my growing up story a few days later is kind of surreal. But I grew up in my mom had both my brother and myself by the time she was 19. So I grew up with really young parents. My father left the house at a very young age, so I was raised by a single mom. Didn't have tons of money, so we were on government assistance at a point in time. I had a lot of help from my grandparents. So I'd say I grew up a little tough, a little rougher. My mom made ends meet whichever way she did. I look back at how my mom made ends meet now, and I look now and I'm like, oh my goodness, you're a saint to do that. But I grew up really in an athletic household. That was my mom's focus. Like, you're not going to come after school and play video games all day. You're not going to just run the streets. You're not going to go hang out on the corner. You're going to do sports, and you're going to be so busy with sports and school, you're going to be too tired to get yourself in trouble. And that was my mom's philosophy, and she ran me around everywhere, and it worked. So I played multiple sports growing up, played baseball, basketball, football. I think I did hockey, volleyball, soccer, taekwondo. I did it all. And there was never a time where she didn't have me involved in sports and really making that my passion in life. So in that environment of growing up, having sports gave me something to do so I wouldn't get in trouble. my mom during this time would continue to better herself. She would go to classes. She would try to get a better job. She started working her way up from really like temp clerical jobs that paid just pretty much minimum wage, and continued working her way up. So she was able to create a sustainable wage. In doing so, she was really hard on us. She did not let us get away with much. And even so much so that my friends knew, like, Anthony can't get in trouble. His mom will kill him. Like, and it's legit, she probably would. So, how has her parenting and her background shaped who I am today? I just called my mom the other day. I said, Mom, I want to say thank you. I said, because today I woke up this morning, I got work done. My daughter comes down at 7:05. Dad, I forgot homework at my mom's house and I need it before my 8 o'clock class. Isabella, I have a client call right now at 7:15 and I'm not done till 8 o'clock, and you have a ride to school already. So like, we're in a world of trouble here. So in true dad fashion, I figure a way to make it happen, run this kid, pick her up, get her homework, do the whole nine. Then after school, Dad, I have a workout session at 4 o'clock. She gets done with 3:40. She gets out of school at 3:40. So now pick her up, run her home, get her changed, put a protein bar, get some Gatorade, take her to her workout session. She gets done workout at 5. She has to be back at Taekwondo at 6. So now she has an hour. She comes home. She's like, I need to do homework, Dad. Okay. So she goes, does homework. I'm like, hey, are you planning to eat something right now? She's like, no. She's like, I'll eat after working out. Okay. Does her homework, 5:50, true fashion, runs downstairs. All right, I just finished my homework. I got to get to the gym. Go drop her off at the gym at 6. She's supposed to get done at 8:15. She texts me, hey, I'm going to do an extra workout. I'll be done around 9:15. All right, Isabella, dude, I got the whole day. I start at 5 in the morning, so now I'm getting tired. Go pick her up at 9:15. Dad, I'm really, really hungry. Come home. Can you fix me up something to eat? Yeah. 9:45. Hey, can you look over my homework from earlier at 5 o'clock? Yes. And then 10:15, by the way, totally forgot I need to sign some paperwork. And so now I'm sitting up with this kid reviewing paperwork, and I'm dog tired. I'm an early bird. It's like 8:39. I'm ready for bed. And I call my mom. I'm like, dude, this is what you did for me. Like, I'm running around all over for this kid, and she's so high activity. Like, I got to do this, and which is how I was as a child. But it's a lot of work, man. Kudos to the parents. I mean, it's a ton of work.
Mm-hmm. Tell me how Mom felt when she got that phone call from you.
Oh, she loved it. I mean, she just laughed. She just said, "You're just getting started." She thinks it's funny. I mean, she's like, she's 12. She's like, she's literally said, she's like, it's just getting started. Like 100%, it's just getting started, and it's going to continue to grow. She's going to get busier. The stakes are going to get bigger. She's like, and then one day, she's going to turn around and be like, oh, I have a boyfriend, or I'm gonna have this, and you're just gonna be like, oh, well, you don't need me anymore. Like, she's like, it just happens so fast. She's like, just hold her tight, hug her close, be supportive of there. And my mom has a perspective on, my mom raised 2 boys. She got remarried later in life. I have a kid sister who I'm 20 years older. But she had this philosophy, and I think it's true. She's like, the way you raise your daughter is the way she's going to believe it is okay for a man to treat her later in life. And this is, if she comes out and is in a traditional male-female relationship, but I would even say it's the way a partner will treat her. And so I look at it from that aspect. I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right. Like, the way I treat her, she's going to expect her partner in life to treat her that way. So now, and my mom has this philosophy, and I believe it. She's like, if you're not going to treat her and give her in a safe environment, she's going to find somebody who will. And I'm like, you're absolutely right. So that's, my mom had a lot of insight, but she's excited to hear it. She tells all the time, she's like, I'm proud of you. I'm watching what you're doing. My brother has 2 kids. She's like, it's funny to watch you boys run all around trying to do things for your kids. She's like, it's just like flashbacks. I remember doing this constantly. So
mm-hmm. It was cool. That's a great story, man. I've interviewed a lot of dads who have had, single moms raised by, and they're actually some of the best dads I've been around. I don't know if it's because you want something you didn't have, or you realize, I don't know really. I mean, I'll ask you, but like it's so inspiring to see, you, Anthony, like I think about another buddy, Chris. It's like you're stopping that cycle. It's like, no, I'm not doing this. I'm going to be the dad, and I'm be all in, hands on. So as I say that, tell me what comes to mind when I say that.
I look at it from the aspect of, if I fail as a dad now, then I failed my mom, because I saw all the sacrifices my mom made. I made it a point. I reconnected with my dad way later in life, and but I made it a point that I remember feeling like crap in high school. My dad never seen me play like varsity football, varsity baseball. I mean, I think from the time that I was 12 or 13, the next time he had seen me play a sporting event was maybe my junior or senior year of college. Like it was a long gap, and it was really only one game that he's shown up to. So there wasn't that support that you get from a father. And I remember being in high school saying, I'm never going to allow my kids to feel this way. I remember being in college saying, I'm never going to allow my kids to feel this way. And I remember the day that my daughter was born, and I remember hugging her and holding her. And I held her, and I just remember whispering into her ear and saying, I'm never going to allow you to feel like I don't care about you. No matter what happens in life, no matter what happens between your mom and I, no matter what my career says, no matter what the world says, you're never going to feel like I don't love you. And it was a promise I made to my daughter when she was, a few minutes old. But it was really more of a promise I made to myself, because my mom never let me feel that way. And so I remember telling my mom as a kid, my mom still has it. I gave my mom you go in like, I don't know, it's 5th grade, 6th grade, whatever grade you're in, or maybe even younger, because it's arts and crafts. But we made like this arts and crafts display, and I made this construction paper tool belt that our school put together to give to everyone was to give to their father for Happy Father's Day. I made one for my mom, and it said Happy Father's Day, Mom. Mm. And nobody told me to do that, but I just did it because I was like, dude, I'm not going to see my dad. I can see my mom. So, to go back to the question is, you see a lot of strong dads raised by single moms. It's because we know what it's like to not have that dad in your life. And we know what it's like to have the absentee father or the Disneyland dad. And it's not fun. You're like, no, I'm the cycle breaks with me.
That's so cool. I almost want to title that name of this episode, Happy Father's Day, Mom. That's powerful. So when you met your dad, when you reconnected him, how was that? If you don't mind sharing. And
yeah, no worries. So my father struggled with alcoholism and a drug addict, and was in and out of prison, in and out of jail as I was younger. As I got older, I was in and out of prison. So it was rough. It was definitely very rough. There was, I would connect with him in spurts. So like I said, it must have been my junior year, football game. He showed up, and I'll share some true vulnerabilities about my father right now, and kind of give you perspective. I'd rather be authentically myself than try to beat around the bush. So I think it's junior year. I want to say it's junior year. Yeah, because junior year football game. He shoots me a phone call like on a Thursday, says, hey, how are things going? Blah, blah, blah. We'd connected a few times before that, just really like casual passing conversations. So he connects with me. I'm going to come to a football game on Saturday. I'm going to bring your aunts, blah, blah, blah. They want to see you play, etc. And I'm like, sure, you come. Like, you've never really, I haven't seen me play in years. It'd be nice for you to come hang out. So he came to the game, hung out, went home afterwards. Cool. 2 weeks later, and part of that, after the game, it was a home game. He came back to my apartment, kind of saw where I live, was kind of doing the whole ordeal. 2 weeks later, my phone rings, 11:45 midnight. My dad calls, and he's like, hey, I'm in the area. Can I come by? And I'm like, it was like a Tuesday or Wednesday night. I'm like, you're in the area. Can you come by? I'm like, well, where are you? He's like, well, I kind of need a ride. I'm like, okay. So he's off the side of a freeway down near Azusa. I think it was in Pasadena. So I drive and I pick him up. I'm like, hey, what's going on? So pick him up. He's like, oh, I had a friend, like a very vague story. Pick him up, bring him back to my apartment. He stays the night with me. Then he wants to stay the week. And I'm like, dude, this doesn't work. I live with 3 other guys. This isn't going to work. You need to go somewhere. He's like, well, I have no place to go. What do you mean you have no place to go? So I ended up having to take a whole day off of school, drive him all the way back to where we live, which was 2 hours away, drop him off at a friend's house. Totally frustrated. Yeah. So we didn't talk for a little bit after that. About 2 or 3 months later, he shows back up to my apartment. This time he shows up in a stolen car. And mind you, right? I went to Azusa Pacific University. I love my friends, and they made fun of me as a kid. They made fun of me, kind of got frustrated. As an adult, I mean, I get it. I did not grow up like a lot of my friends at Azusa Pacific, right? I mean, hello, my father's driving to an Azusa Pacific campus in a stolen car to visit me. I have friends whose parents were like mayors and congressmen and different high level business executives and political figures. Not my dad. But my dad had been in and out of prison. So he shows up. He's like, "Oh, I came in a friend's car to come visit you." And I'm like, "It's a really nice friend's car, man. Like, I don't, and I'm incredibly suspicious." And he's like, "Hey, can I stay the night tonight?" And I'm like, "Dad, like, yeah, but I don't know whose car this is. Like, I don't even want to know. Like, just." So the next morning, one of my roommates talks to me. He's like, "Hey, dude, like, is your dad here in a stolen car?" I'm like, "Look, dude, I don't know. I'm not going to ask, and you shouldn't ask because you don't want to know, but I'm going to tell him he has to leave today. Dad, you can't be showing up doing this shit. Like, this is incredibly embarrassing. Like, I'm embarrassed that you're here. I know you're in a stolen car. My roommates are starting to suspect you were here a couple weeks ago, homeless. Now you're here in this newer sedan that I have no idea where it came from." So we disappear, disconnect. It wasn't much later after that my dad locked up, got a letter. He was in prison. Mm-hmm. And so throughout college, I would get letters from my dad from prison. And they were very like graphic feel. Like, I don't know if you ever seen like prison art. There's all these, like, it's really painting. It's elaborate paintings that would show up. So it was clear as mud that this was not a normal letter, but it was a prison letter. So I went through my whole college career getting these prison letters from my dad. My dad gets paroled the year after I graduate. And as a matter of fact, as I'm telling the story, I think I got prison letters my freshman year. He must have been in prison in my freshman year because I remember getting prison letters before he showed up to that game. So spent the whole career getting those. The year after I graduate, he gets paroled. I make the move from Pasadena to Bakersfield. Shows up, we're communicating. He gets paroled. Love to connect with you. I'm like, "Look, if you want to connect with me," I'm like, I need to load up a U-Haul. You can help me pack a U-Haul. I got a 2-hour journey, and I don't have anyone to help me unload when I get to Bakersfield. I'm starting this new business, Cutco. I have no friends, no family out there. I got a U-Haul and a beat up 1990 Ford Expedition that barely can make it over the grapevine. But if you want to come with me, this is the journey. So he showed up. He came with me. He helped me unpack. Spent 2-3 days with my dad. And then he wanted to get back home. So I put him on a bus, got him a bus ticket. He went back home. A little bit later, I got another letter. He was back in prison again. So this time he was in prison pretty much from 2006 all the way to 2011. 2011, actually 2012. Yeah, so he was in prison for 6 years this time. So 2006, 2012 in prison. So we had communicated via prison. He gets out of prison this time. Comes in. This time he chooses to get paroled where I live in Bakersfield. So when he gets paroled where I live in Bakersfield, calls me and says, "Hey, I'm out of prison. I just dropped off at the bus stop. Can I come visit you?" Now I work in a corporate environment in B2B. I wear a shirt and tie every day. I'm moving, and I'm like, "All right." And I'm like, "Well, how are you going to get here?" He's like, "I'm going to walk." I'm like, it's 107 degrees in Bakersfield. The bus station is 8 miles. It's going to take you all day. I'm going to go pick you up. So I go pick up my dad, take him to a rehab home he's in, have lunch with him. He says he's going to live with me in Bakersfield. I'm like, "Well, you can't live with me. You can live in the rehabilitation home, but you're not going to live with me." So for about a year, my dad stays clean and sober. And while he stays clean and sober, I tell him, I'm like, "I will be a resource for you while you stay clean and sober." And so, he had picked up a job in the mornings that was a 30-minute drive away from him. He couldn't get there in the morning. So I made it. I'm like, "Look, if you can't get there and you're going to work, I'll pick you up every day and I'll take you to work till you make enough money. We'll buy you an old truck. We'll just rebuild your life." And so we did that. So I was getting up every morning, going to pick him up like 4 a.m., driving him to the construction job site, dropping him off. And so we had this cycle going. And then one day he called and said he wasn't going to work. And red flags went off in my head. Mm-hmm. And then the next day he called and said, "Hey, I'm moving out of the halfway home." "What do you mean you're moving out of the men's home?" He's like, I can't do what I want here." I'm like, "Well, what do you want to do?" He's like, I have no privacy. They have rules. The rules they had, there was no alcohol. You had to be in facility before 9 p.m. You were subject to randomized drug test. And so I'm red flags. I'm like, "Dude, I think it's a really bad idea. I think it's a really bad idea." His argument, "Oh, I have a girlfriend. They don't let her come over." So him and his girlfriend get a small 1-bedroom apartment. From the day they got the apartment, within 90 days, he had completely relapsed, got back into drugs, got back into crime. It was like he jumped off a cliff. It got really bad. He's, he knew where I lived. He would show up unannounced, unexpected. And so his drug use had gotten so bad that at the time I was moving, and it wasn't because of him. It was just I was moving from one home to the other. I'd bought a bigger home, and I didn't want to tell him that I was moving. But I went and I tracked him down, and I said, "Hey, I got to be honest with you. The direction you're going on right now, like this isn't going to work for me. Like, you're not going to be around my family. You're not going to be around my daughter. Like, this doesn't work for me. So if you need something, you can text me. I'm not always going to be here. I'm not going to go out of my way. Like, you're not going to take care of yourself. I'm not going to take care of you." And so essentially it was a little bit more direct, but essentially I cut my dad off that day. I was like, I'm not going to have this communication. I'm not going to have this relationship with you. Like, this is, you've made a choice. You want to live a drug-filled life. So from there, for the next, 3.5 years, he essentially became homeless, got back into drugs, got back into crime, all up and down the state of California, which, I don't know how many of your listeners actually know a homeless person, but they're really resourceful, right? A homeless criminal. I don't want to say a homeless person, but a homeless criminal is really resourceful. I mean, he was calling me up and down the state of California. And, long story short, my dad ended up having an overdose of heroin. He developed meningitis. He ended up being admitted to the hospital, and he had to have multiple spinal taps. He was in the hospital for 6 weeks. He had to end up having a surgical procedure. So I was his next of kin. He gave me, power of attorney for all of his medical care. I went down and I convinced my dad that he needed to take a surgical procedure to relieve fluid from his brain. We had talked when he first came in after, this was like his third time he'd overdosed and ended up in the emergency room. And I received every phone call. And this one, something told me was a little bit different. So I came down right away. And he was like, "I'm done. I want to go back into the rehab home. I want to do this. I want to do that." All these things that he says. So, I look at it and say, "Okay, we'll get you back in rehab. You're my dad. I love you. I'm going to take care of you." He never recovered for that. So he ended up, I talked him into having a surgical procedure. He survived surgery, but had complications post-surgery, ended up suffering a stroke, became brain dead after the stroke, or clinically brain dead after the stroke. And 2 days later, I made the difficult decision to end of life care for my father. And I remember, his sisters and everybody was upset with me because I made the decision so quick. And I'm like, "Look, I gotta be honest with you." I said, I didn't have the best relationship with my dad. I didn't, but I know multiple times we've had conversations that he would tell me, if I'm ever in a position where I get sick or something bad happens to me and I can't take care of myself, like, and there's gonna be zero, like, don't let me live that way. I would rather go in peace. My time has come. My time has gone. And so I made that difficult decision, ended life care. And that was, it was almost 7 years ago now, that I've been without my father. So that was like the relationship I had with my dad, where it really was, I took care of my dad more than he took care of me.
Wow, brother. That's powerful. Do your kids know about Grandpa?
No. So my daughter doesn't remember meeting him at all. Like, very, very, very rarely remembers meeting him at all. My stepchildren, they came into the picture, after he had already, we sent him, like, I told him I didn't want him around my family and anything in that situation. So nobody really remembers him alive. They remember him passing. They remember the story of him passing. But by that time, he was so gone off and back into drugs and crime that I didn't really expose anybody to him. The only person that knew him was my wife. And, and we were kind of in agreement. It's like, like, as long as your dad is in this way, like, he doesn't need to meet the kids. Like, there's zero reason for him to be around. And we agreed. It was a really difficult decision, but it was the right decision, and I would do it again.
Yeah, I can relate on a few things you talked about. My dad never, thankfully got into crime, but my parents got divorced when I was in college, and then my dad never really rebounded from that. He struggled with, alcoholism. He struggled with a rap sheet of health issues from, um, a rap sheet from bipolar to congestive heart failure to kidney disease, and in and out of assisted living facilities. And now my dad's, almost 80 years old and, just not in great health. And it's sad to see kind of his end of life, but my wife and I have done everything we can to help financially, emotionally, and to see where he's at now is tough. And, with COVID, I wouldn't see him for a year and a half because we either couldn't get into the facility. And part of me, it was almost like I didn't want to see him because I was scared. And one of the last few times I saw him when he could better communicate with me, he accused me of stealing all his money to build our home.
Hey everybody, it's Casey Jaycox with Quarterback Dadcast, and we're going to take a quick break right now to talk about Catch Sitka Seafoods, who's been with our kind sponsors now for nearly a year. And so thanks to Assam and Mindy and team up at Catch Sitka Seafoods. And so I want to talk about something today that might be a little early, you might be thinking, but it's not. It's going to be here before we know it. And that is, let's get ahead of it and let's think about holiday shopping specifically for our clients. So they have holiday gift boxes that are amazing. You can get wild Alaskan salmon, halibut, Applewood smoked fish. I've had them all. They're amazing. But what they have also that's really, really great is a commemorative cedar plank made from the Sitka cedar. Perfect for creating that sea cuttery board, and a jar of their incredible Catch Sitka seafood sea salt made from the cold, clear waters of the Pacific, and absolutely perfect, a final touch to your plate and platter. So with that, don't wait. Get on their site right now to catchsitkaseafoods.com and order some holiday gifts. Get ahead of it. They have subscription models very available. Again, catchsitkaseafoods.com. Now let's get back to the rest of this episode.
And anybody who's have fathers with dementia out there, that it's a disease. You're trying to reason with somebody who's very unreasonable, and you have to just get in character and let them live their journey, because you're never going to be able to reason. So for those people who've read my book, Win the Relationship, Not the Deal, I talk about that at the end. It's, where I say, win the relationship with my dad, not the dementia. And so I know what it's like to support a father. And I know that your story definitely spoke to me, and makes me as dad, hands-on father, to make sure that my kids know that I never want to have to put them through that. And obviously my dad, your dad, they didn't do it on purpose, but it is what it is. It happened. And I think a lot of, at least I'll speak for my dad, Anthony, I think a lot of this was self-induced. I've never gone down personally the path of mental illness, so I don't know what it feels like. I'm more of I can just mind over matter, kind of get out of it. But I really feel for my dad who couldn't get out of it. And I'm assuming maybe your dad's a similar spot where he just couldn't stop it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that back with me. I think one of those things is it really is a sickness. It controls somebody. There was times as a kid I would be so upset and embarrassed at who my father was. And later in life, I look at it, and you look at we become dads ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. I'm not a perfect father. I'm not a perfect husband. I've made a bazillion mistakes. I'm sure I'm going to make more in the future. But as I go through that, I look at the mistakes my dad made. And I look at the mistakes you just shared, and some of the challenges you have with your father. It really is a sickness that takes control of somebody. And I'm like you. I'm a mind over matter person. I had the hardest time understanding, just stop. You don't want to do it. Just stop. Mm-hmm. You don't want this life. Just let it go.
Mm-hmm.
But in growing in my business and growing in my career, I realized that if people could just stop and make a pivot dime shift and change the behavior that is ingrained in them, that they're addicted to,
mm-hmm.
they it's not that they don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know how. They don't have the support. They don't have the resources. And they don't have the environment. There's so much to being said where, I look at it and say, I've shared this with people who I've mentored in masterminds. You hear the story, right? You're the closest person to 5 people around you. And I always ask conversation when people get vulnerable, like who knows somebody who struggles with addiction, alcoholism, drugism, etc. Right? If you take that person and you want that person to change their life. Two things. One, that person has to want to do it. Two, and in them wanting to do it, they have to change their environment. Like they have to get up and say, I'm going to move into a different environment. So I look at it in the aspect of if my father, who was strung out on drugs, into crime, into organized crime, like in this horrible life, said, okay, hey, you know what? We're going to pick you up. We're going to eliminate the drugs. We're going to eliminate this. And we're going to put you in a room of 5 people who are all CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. By default, my dad would have changed his behaviors to be amongst those in his surrounding environment. That addiction puts people in a surrounding environment that doesn't allow them to change. And so it's tough as a kid. It's tough to analyze. It's tough to look at that. I was once asked if I could change anything about my childhood, would I? And the answer is no, because it's who I am today. Like how I am, how I look at my life, how I shape, how I breathe, how I interact with my kids. Even so much so when my father passed, I remember at the tail end of his life and giving the eulogy at his services, I'm like, you know what? I didn't have the greatest relationship, but I'm not angry. I'm who I am today and the level of success and where I'm going. And it's, you indirectly motivated me. And, I loved you. I hated you, but I always wanted to be better than you. So there was always something that I was striving for. So yeah, man, it's a tough journey.
Adversity is life's golden ticket. Someone told me.
Absolutely.
And I even I went through a big injury my senior year in high school that really impacted my journey to end up playing football at Central Washington. It seems like, oh, do you wish you would have been able to play like at a bigger school? Like one, I was like, no, I don't, because if I don't go through that injury to help get me to Central, that it shaped me, the grittiness, the resilience, the mindset, the goal setting, the humility, the leadership, all these things because of that moment. As a 45-year-old dude, I look back to that moment to this day. And even when my kids struggle, I love when they struggle. It sometimes sucks to see them not get the team they want, the golf score they shot, but great. We're going to learn from it. Life's not perfect. I'm like you said, we all got gaps. And the purpose of this goal, even the host of this podcast, I selfishly, I learn from everybody I interview. Right. I learn from everybody I interview, and allows me to be hopefully a more self-aware dad when I know I'm not on my best dad game. So, okay, that was awesome, dude. I want to go into, so when did you play football at Azusa?
Oh, let's see, 2001 to 2005.
Okay, so I was just before you. So my last year was 98, and we lost to you guys. Azusa went on to win the national championship that year.
Yeah.
And we beat Azusa 56-10 my first game of my senior year.
Okay.
We went down there, and I told the guys all week, I'm like, man, these guys are going to be pissed. Be ready to go. And our running back was an absolute stud, and he was hurt. And so he didn't really play at all. We changed the way kind of like our game plan, and we ended up throwing it a ton, and we got down, and then we had to, at the end, forced a couple throws, picked off, and Azusa went on to win it that year.
Yeah.
But I'm over it, dude. Seriously, I'm over it.
You had some pretty good distinct memory there talking about it.
I was joking. So I want to hear about this journey that got you into this speaking world, the book, and let's talk about that, so our listeners know how to learn more about this.
Yeah. So fun thing, you take all your life's challenges, adversities, everything you did, and you're like, okay, this is who my identity is. And I've always wanted to deliver a message to the world. I always felt like I had something impactful and inspiring to say. I always felt like I could change somebody. And the higher my level of success climbed in corporate America, the more amount of money I made, the more amount of money I saved, the more amount of money I gave back to the community. I was like, okay, I can do more than this. Like I can do more than make a donation. I can do more than sponsor a family for the holidays and all this other things that we do. So I was like, okay, let me see what I'm good at. Let me see what I can deliver. And Catapulting Commissions came from that, where it was, okay, can you impact and inspire and strategically align sales professionals and business owners with their goals and lay out a roadmap for them to achieve a level of success? And that's really where Catapulting Commissions came from. So I wrote a book, Catapulting Commissions, Achieve Your Next Sales Goal. It really is, it's a goal-setting book written for sales professionals or business owners. I've had a lot of people who've read the book who aren't in sales or business owners and like, hey man, this is an amazing goal-setting book. And the reason I didn't write a goal-setting book is because there was a million goal-setting books, and it wasn't something that I was really an expert in. Like, there's still goals I've not accomplished in life, and it's not like I haven't hiked Mount Everest. I haven't done one of these like immaculate, like lifelong goals, but I've done a bazillion business and sales goals over and over and over again. So that was my area of expertise. Expanded that and have built a complete, separate company within Catapulting Commissions where we do sales coaching, training. We do sales as a service for companies. It has grown so fast. The speaking component is what the goal and alignment was with Catapulting Commissions. It was like, oh, we're going to build and launch a speaking career. The only problem with this is I launched a speaking career, 4 months before COVID hit. So for a year and a half, all live events were almost paused, rescheduled, not taking place. So everything that I had booked didn't exist anymore. So I had to really make a pivot, go into the virtual world, and that's where a lot of the coaching consulting has picked up within Catapulting Commissions. So that's what we do. We really reshape the framework and thinking of business owners and sales professionals that want to get the most out of their career.
It's so cool. We have similar journeys. Like I don't know about you, but I did not mean to get into coaching, sales coaching, leadership coaching. It found me. Is that something you always wanted to do, or did it kind of find you as well?
Kind of found me, all honesty. So I realized about 5.5, 6 years ago where I was spending hours on the phone in the evenings talking with people within my own company of strategies and sales strategies and execution strategies. And I was like, okay. And then I picked up a phone call one day from somebody who I used to work with in a completely different company. I was like, hey, I want to bounce some ideas off you. Would you mind? You've always had great thoughts and insights on business. Can we talk? Sure. Had this full on conversation. And next thing you know, this person called me back. It's like, shit, I should find a way to monetize this. Like, this is happening all the time. Mm-hmm. I had went to grad school a couple years before that phone call. I did some projects where we did some consulting for local companies. And I was like, let me just see if this would work. So 5 years ago, my very first coaching clients, quote unquote coaching clients, I was teaching people how to interview for breakthrough high-end sales jobs. Like, that was it. That was my coaching practice in its infancy. People would reach out to me and say, hey, I'm interviewing for XYZ company. Will you role play an interview with me? Will you help me prepare for the interview? And I was like, I just remember I charge $300 to prep you for an interview. It's going to be two-hour calls and a little work in between. And when she said yes, I was like, shit. And we finished. She was like, I have a couple of friends, I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And it went from that in its infancy to, now I manage a significantly large business portfolio. I have clients that have, 7, 8, 9-figure businesses that I work with, and it has completely changed. And I'm thankful, kudos on knock on wood, every day that I work with these clients and I run my business. I'm like, man, this is my life. I don't have to do this. I get to do this. I choose to do this. This is what I want to do, but it is so fun. I mean, you hear the stories, the strategies, and I tell people, and it's funny, I give back to my local community. I live in Bakersfield, California. I'm part of the Kern Women's Business Group, so I do free business coaching and consulting for a select few people. It takes up a really small portion of my calendar on a monthly basis. And when I chat with these aspiring business owners, people who have small revenues, I'm like, hey, I just got off the phone with a client that did $72 million in a small company in Des Moines, Iowa, has 462 employees. This is his specialty. This is what he does. And you want to know what? He had the same exact problem you have. Mm. And they hear that and they're like, holy crap. I'm like, so it's not that you can't be successful. We're going to get you there, but just know you're not alone. So it's such a fun journey to see and get insight in all around the world. I mean, I've had, I had a client this morning, and I have international clients. So I have clients that I connect with at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 4 a.m. sometimes. I've had clients from Poland. I had one this morning from Costa Rica. And you just hear the business journey these guys are dealing with, and you're like, let's work through it. Let's create a game plan and let's get it through it. It's been a fun journey.
Wow. That's awesome, man. Good for you. Okay, I want to hear about. So, as dads, we make mistakes, but when we make a mistake, we either have the opportunity to say, "I am sorry, honey. I'm sorry, kids. That was not his best." That takes a lot of self-awareness. Takes emotional intelligence. Takes confidence. Takes a sense of just being present. It's something I've done, but I've had to do before. Like, and all of us dads, you guys, we're not perfect. And so, Anthony, I want to ask you, like, as you think about over your journey as a father, if you feel comfortable, maybe talk about a mistake that you that happened as your dad game that other dads at home might be able to relate to. And how did you rectify it to make it a positive outcome for the family?
Yeah. Oh man. So listen, I've had to my girls, it's pretty easy. Like every now and then, like if my wife and I, we try to keep our disagreements away from them. Every now and then, our disagreements will get the best of us, and they'll hear us have a disagreement, and we don't yell and curse at each other, but you can tell, like, oh, you guys are having a disagreement. And every time we do it, both mom and I are like, man, feel like shit. So like, hey, I'm sorry, like I need to do better. And thankfully, I mean, it's sorry, my multi-pool wanted to make an appearance on the show. So as we have those arguments or disagreements, they're not as frequent as they're not constant. So those are ones like, all right, I'm sorry, and I mean, I could probably count on one hand the amount of times we've had those arguments in the past 7-8 years. The one where I really messed up recently, my 21-year-old. So my 21-year-old is my stepson. He came into my life when he was 14. So we have been in each other's life for 7 years. So if you think about a young boy at 14 getting a new stepfather figure in your life, 14 to 21, it was like a pivotal time in any man's journey into manhood. And this took place a month and a half ago. And I asked him to move some packages and do some things for me around the house. He responded that he wasn't going to do it because it's not his responsibility, and that he didn't order the packages, and the mess around the house wasn't his responsibility. And I'm like, I'm not asking if it's your responsibility. I'm asking you to help around the house, and please do this. He gave me some lip service back, and I gave him lip service back. And so we got into a strong disagreement. And I made this statement where I said, I'll tell you what, if you can't honor and respect the rules of this house, then you don't need to live here anymore. And you can pack your crap and get the hell out of here. And I said it in a very angry tone. And his face was like angry, stormed off. He was upset and angry. Called my wife, told her I was angry, told her the story. She was happy. She was obviously not happy that I just told her baby boy to pack his crap and get out of the home. And so he had took off, went to his girlfriend's house. My wife came home later from work. I had this conversation, mind you, with both our 12-year-old daughters upstairs. So now they're hearing me tell their older brother to pack his crap and get out of the house. So it was a moment of anger. I was really frustrated. He had said some things and did some things that were incredibly disrespectful. So later that evening, mom comes and plays the mediator. We sit down, we talk. And, he's sitting there and he's talking, and he says why he felt like he shouldn't have to do certain things around the house. I responded, I'm like, it's not about whether, you're made the responsibility or not. Like, this is a home we all run in. We all run a cohesive unit. Moral of the story was the moment he made the decision that he was going to raise his voice and talk to me in a disrespectful manner, I made the decision that I was going to strike with authority. Well, then if you're not going to do that, you can pack your crap and leave. And the response should have been, look, I'm not speaking to you in a disrespectful manner, and I'm not going to tolerate for you to speak to me in a disrespectful manner. So if you need to change your tone, you need to rework your framework, whatever it is you need to do, you can go back to your room and do this. We can come out and have this conversation again. But I'm not going to allow you to talk to me in this manner, which is what I should have said. But instead of that, I King Konged him, like, this is my home. You're not going to do this. And it was a really, really, really bad idea. So later that evening, he came to me and I asked him at the end, I said, and my wife put perspective. She's like, you have to realize something. She's like, you're the most constant male in his entire life. And you just told him to pack his crap and get out of here. And so I said, how does that make you feel? And, he's 21, so he's not going to cry, but he definitely got a little emotional. He's like, it's like I thought this was home. And, for the first time ever, I felt like he can be taken from me. And so I owed him an apology. I said, look, I shouldn't have said that. And I said, I will tell you this. There's a level of respect that is expected in this household. The same respect that I expect from the girls, the same respect your mom expects from me, and I expect, like, we run a house on respect. And I asked him, so do you agree that you crossed that line? He was like, yeah. I said, okay. And I said, one day you're going to get this. You're going to be the parent, and you're going to have to bite your tongue. And I'm like, and today I failed. I should have just bit my tongue and said, hey, I'm not going to have this line of conversation. It bugged me, and it was tough because, and this was like a month and a half ago. He laughs about it now, and he comes home and he's like, I'm gonna take the trash out before Anthony kicks me out, or King Kong. He has jokes now. He has little one-liners, which tells me we're back in a loving space. But for a couple of days afterwards, I was really down on myself. My wife, I think what beat me up was, anybody who's married, you have those late night conversations with your spouse in bed. Everyone's in bed, everyone's asleep, like the whole house is settled down. And at night, I could tell she was frustrated. And she said, Anthony, she says, I love you. She says, I'm not angry. She says, like, I'm just disappointed. She's like, I know having a young man is difficult, and raising a young kid. She's like, you've raised him as a team. I'm not mad at you that, I'm not mad at you that you've went on a disciplinary road. I'm mad at you that you took it overboard. I'm hurt that you at a point said, I'm going to eliminate, I can eliminate this. And I said, I gotta be honest with you. I was frustrated. There's a level of respect. I said, heck, to be honest with you, if the 12-year-old girls were 21-year-old women and they were telling me the same thing, I probably would have said the same thing. Doesn't make it right. You are correct. I need to set the example and set the tone. So yeah, that was a tough one. And I mean, this is literally a month and a half ago. So when I say I'm not perfect, I'm definitely not perfect. So
yeah, but what I love about that, man? I love your vulnerability and honesty, because that's like what you've done today is like my vision when I started this thing almost 2 years ago. I wanted to be able to have raw conversations with dads to realize that, listen, just because you're a dude doesn't mean you can't talk. And if you want to cry. Dude, I tear up in freaking half the movies. My kids bust my chops all the time. I'm like, I don't care. I'm being myself. Right. Yeah. And what I love that you said is you made the choice. Like that's true accountability, bro. And I love that. It's like, when we overreact, we have a choice. It's no one's fault but ours. And when you like drill down to that level, because there's on nightlife, I always believe there's two things we control: our attitude and our effort. Sometimes we feel like it's other people's fault. These things happen, but if we have to like stop and like that self-awareness moment you just have with yourself, I think the next time it happens, you're going to remember. It'll take you right back to this decision. How are we going to respond? And you might make a mistake again, just like most of us dads will. But if we do, but then try to like just own it and not like let it drag out. And so I love that. Okay. So as we get ready to wrap up, before we go into a fun lightning round where I go just completely random Uncle Rico on you, I want to hear, like, how would you best describe kind of our conversation today that dads at home or moms or anybody who's listening can say, man, I took these 2 or 3 things away that allow me to be that ultimate leader of my household, my ultimate quarterback of my household. What comes to mind?
I think if there's 2 or 3 things to take to be the ultimate leader in the household, right? I would say one is to respond to every situation. Don't react to every situation, right? Everything that takes place in your household, respond. You can respond by acknowledging. You look in the aspect of your wife cooked dinner, acknowledge it. Your kids took the time to do something, acknowledge it. Someone got out of line, respond. Don't react. Because when you react to things, you typically react out of anger, you react out of frustration, you react out of emotion. So that's the first thing I would say. When you become a dad, it takes time to respond and not react. I think the second component of being a dad and quarterbacking your household is you have to anticipate all the challenges that are going to take place in your home. If you treat your home like a business, and when I say like a business, I've made the joke where I'm like, I pencil time on my calendar to sit on the couch with my wife and watch TV. And she's like, oh, you pencil me in. I'm like, no, I'm not penciling you in. I'm anticipating what's going to happen in my household. So if you anticipate everything in your home in advance and you take that responsibility as a parent, you eliminate surprises. And it's one of those things that I think we often put on the responsibility of moms. Moms can anticipate everything, right? If we had the Moms Quarterback podcast, moms could tell you, dude, I could list out their school assignments, their projects, their their homework, their play dates. I mean, they just have this thing running, and it's amazing. I come from the aspect of I don't have that much detail, but I'm going to anticipate all the adversity, all the challenges that are going to come up, all the problems that can arise. I'm going to anticipate those. So as a dad, I anticipate everything that's going to take place in my home in advance. So I have a game plan for everything. And I think the last thing is, don't ever, I guess, how would I say this? Be authentically yourself at every given point in time in your home. So much so that it's inviting for everybody to talk to you about everything. Every kid, every person in your home, in your environment should feel comfortable coming to dad to have a conversation with you about anything. And that only happens when you're authentically yourself. And there's times, your kids are going to want to tell you something you're not happy with. They're going to tell you something that's upsetting, discouraging. How you respond, how you react is going to determine if they're going to come to you again in the future. So just be authentically yourself. My daughters have shared things with me that have frustrated me. I listen to them and I'm just like, all right, and I always tell them, how do you think I'm going to react right now? And I love hearing their perception because, some are like, they think I'm going to like fly off the handle on the lid. And I'm like, I'm not doing that, but I'm going to be authentic to myself. Yeah, my feelings are hurt. Yeah, I'm upset. Yes, this did hurt somebody. There's a responsibility. There's a lesson we're going to learn from this. But you only get there when you're authentically yourself at home, right? There's no I in team, right? And at the same time, when you look at your home and your family, it's a team. Everyone has the same goal and objectives. Just certain people have different levels of responsibility. So.
Great, man. Those are awesome. I love the respond, not react. That one hit home right now. I love and anticipating the challenges. Quarterback's got to read the defense, and we got to play call. We got to check out because can't protect, and then authentically be yourself. I love that because I heard someone say the number one reason to be yourself is because everybody else is already taken.
Very true.
Kind of a cheesy, corny one, but it is true. So, all right, man. Well, this has been powerful, and I hope that we get a lot of dads that this hits home to. But now it's time to go into lightning round, which I take you in the mind of a washed-up Uncle Rico, quarterback from Central Washington University, with probably some severe CTE issues, heavy sarcasm. But like now, I just go random, and I'm asking anything top of mind. Your job is to answer these questions as quickly as you can.
Okay,
you ready?
Yeah. I'm ready.
All right. I come to the Garcia house tonight. What's for dinner?
Carne asada.
Ooh, that sounds good. If you were going to book a vacation right now, where are you going?
Cabo San Lucas.
I love Cabo. Last book you read?
What is the last? 5 Dysfunctions of a Team.
Patrick Lencioni.
Yeah.
If you were to have a movie written about your life, what would be the title?
If I was to have a movie written about my life, what would be the title? Here Comes the Shit Show.
Love it. We make that XXX.
Yeah.
If you were to be doing any other job right now in life, what would you be doing?
Politician.
Okay. And if there was one word to describe your wife, what would you do? What would you say?
Hot as hell. Sexy.
Ooh. God.
Hi, babe.
That was a hyphenated word. We'll call that. And lastly, if you were to write a book, a next book, what would it be about?
The next book that I would write about would be how to overcome adversity, like the steps required to anticipate and overcome adversity.
Love it. And favorite comedy movie?
So many, but to live with one as a Office Christmas Party. I'm not sure if anyone's seen it. Office Christmas Party is hilarious. It is. I love it because in my corporate life, I've worked with some companies that really emulated what Office Christmas Party was, and so it's kind of like reliving a younger version of myself. It's just funny. It's full of one-liners that I still quote to this day. All my employees think I'm a nut because I quote them. They don't even realize it. I'm like, dude, just quote it. You didn't even pick it up, man. Some
of my buddies give me a hard time. They say, dude, if there were not 80s movies, Jay Cox, you wouldn't even be funny. I love quoting my 80s stuff. So, all right, man. Well, lightning round's over. This has been such a great conversation. And the power of the internet. This is how we meet. And I was a guest on Anthony's podcast, and I want to return the favor. And I'm so glad you decided to come on because what a powerful story, an authentic story, a story of vulnerability. But it's very cool and inspiring to see what you've done with the potential quote unquote, bad hand you're dealt, but you've turned it into a freaking full house, bro. And with nothing but respect and I wish you nothing but the best in all your things you do, and keep inspiring and teaching these companies how to do it the right way. I want to thank our sponsors for your support. And I also want to say, if this episode did speak to you, take a minute to leave us a review, leave a comment wherever you see the social post, but more importantly, share it with a friend. If there's someone that you feel this episode would touch and he or she could learn from it, that is like the ultimate compliment you could give us. But with that, this episode of the Quarterback Dadcast in the books. Anthony, Dan, thank you so much for your time, buddy.
Thanks for having me.